Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, a show that celebrates all things nerdy. You'll get an insider's look into the world of comic books, graphic novels, TV and film, gaming and pop culture, as well as the technologies that drive all of it. Now, are you ready to get nerdy? Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, the show about all things nerdy. We discuss nerd news, movies, TV shows, games, comics, and so much more. I'm Brian.
I'm Chad.
I'm Brian.
Brace yourselves, because we're about to get nerdy. All right. Before we
the name's down.
Oh no.
There.
the name is somewhere. Before we jump into the episode, we just want to give a shout out to the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. Chad, where's your Vanna White hand?
Oh, sorry, I was drinking
this without your Vanna White.
my drink.
Such a freaking slacker.
Sorry.
On Tuesday nights, which is right now, we have the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. Sometimes we have Clever Title pending, but it's on a hiatus right now because we stole that time slot. Tomorrow morning will be Nevermind the Furthermore, which is kind of the mothership of this network. And then tomorrow evening, I believe we have the Truthmongers with
The
with
Mongers
Ted
of Truth.
Davies. and then Armchair Rocket Science at 9 p.m. And then
Are you going to read them all? Because my arms are getting
I'm
tired.
going to read every single one until your arm falls off. Now, we have shows about being a creative. We have shows about making watches. We have shows about Nerd News, which is the show that you're watching right now. So let's get rid of that. And how you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah?
Awesome.
Lies.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yes.
Never better.
Oh, man. So today, folks, friends and foes, we will be reviewing Dune for your and our pleasure. If you don't know, Dune is a very epic novel. Actually, it's a novel series. There's quite a few books in Dune. Chad, how many books are there? Don't you own all of them?
I have them. Yes, I've not read them, so I can't tell you. They're around here somewhere. Where did I put them?
Book
they're right here.
But not a reader, eh?
That's true. I'm a new Dune fan, so there's 6 of them total.
Okay.
Well,
cool.
Hold on. There's 6 in the original Frank Herbert. I think the first 3, and then his son did some, and then after that, there's like 20 more books or something crazy like that. So
good grief.
There's a
so
lot.
It's like the sci-fi Tolkien.
Yeah, but I'd say probably a lot more than what.
Probably so.
Yeah. So.
Well, we are going to talk about the movie. I don't believe, Jeremy, you don't read. Chad, you said you just started reading.
I thought we were reviewing Doom.
Yeah,
Dune.
That's what you're reviewing. We're reviewing Dune. It's going to be a great show. Yeah. Doom, like the movie with The Rock.
Yeah. About the video game.
It's the same.
That's totally
nerdy.
movie.
Yeah, it's the same.
It
thing.
is.
Yeah,
it is.
You'll be.
It was
fine.
just as good.
Yeah.
So before we jump into that, though, I kind of want to go around and this is the first show where it's just been the 3 of us.
I love it.
Hanging out and talking.
I hate other people.
In a very long time, but especially this season. So what are we looking forward to? And as we enter the holiday season, there's a lot of movies and shows and books and whatever that are going to be released. What are you guys most looking forward to in the months to come as we close out 2021? Chad, why don't you start?
I feel like when I answer this, I should turn this way and look at you. So
I will turn this way so I don't have to see you.
Oh, how dare you! Fucking Jeremy. Where are you, Jeremy? There you are.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so here's the problem with this question. I'm definitely a nerd, but I'm very self-centered. So I just think of projects that I need to work on because I don't really read or get out much.
So your comics are the releases that you're looking forward to.
Yes, exactly. The projects that I'm working on
super selfish.
are the releases that I'm looking forward to. Now, the 2 that I have my eye on, and they're not for this year, but they're early next year, is the Batman movie.
Oh yeah.
and Morbius. Is that how you say it? With
No.
Yeah.
It's Morpheus.
It's not Morpheus. That's how
No,
I said it the first time, but it's
Moibius.
Moibius. Moibius.
No,
yeah.
that's the
Moibius.
artist. It's Morbius. You're right.
Okay, that's what I thought. You guys are messing with my head, but I have not read that comic, obviously, as you can tell. But the trailer looked amazing, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I'm kind of, I noticed like with the Elemental, or not the Element, Eternals that just came out.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I hate to say this out loud, but I'm kind of getting over Marvel movies.
No!
There's so many out there. I'm just like,
We just
getting
lost
bored.
all our
It's
subscribers
just like,
now. Thanks,
Yep.
Chad.
sorry,
Everyone
but
hates Chad.
I just was not excited about that one. I saw the thing to Black Adam, and everyone was like going crazy. I'm like, this looks boring.
But that's not Marvel.
Yeah.
I guess
That's
a good
DC.
point. So I'll just be the pessimist over here in the corner. Just
So you're not looking
waiting
forward to anything.
No,
You're
I'm just gonna put out
my books
I'm
are
just gonna put out
busts.
my
I don't
stuff,
care.
and everyone
Yeah.
else I don't care about. So
All right. Well, Jeremy, why don't you tell us a
The
different
Silence
tale?
too.
Oh, God.
thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate
no
that.
problem.
You're the best.
Yeah, so I looked at a bunch of different things coming up in the next couple of months, and you've got like the Ghostbusters. I could not think of the word. The Ghostbusters movie. I have it
Ghostbusters
written,
Afterlife?
on the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that one was one that I've been waiting for, because it had been delayed a couple of times, so I feel like it should have already been out, and maybe that's why it's stuck in my head. I think you've got the Hawkeye series coming out, which I think will be good. I think was it Haley Steinfeld? Is that what it's not Seinfeld? The girl, his
it's
sidekick.
Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Yep. Seinfeld.
Yeah,
That's what you're looking forward to.
I think she's gonna make it good. I think it's gonna be like, I think their chemistry is gonna be good in the film, is what I'm trying to say, or in the series. I mean, a lot of times you just don't know with movies. They put two people together, and you're like, I hope this works. But from what I saw from the trailers, I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
It almost had like a Die Hard sort of feel to it. Maybe just because it was like obviously Christmas.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
My mind was in Ghostbusters, and I was like, Die Hard.
No.
What?
Hawkeye.
Sorry.
Remember,
Yeah.
I jumped.
Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I did not hear.
Yeah. So
Anyway, really doing well.
do you know what I mean though? Like when I watched the trailer for the Hawkeye series, I kind of had this Die Hard sort of feel. Like they're just trying to have this normal holiday experience, and all of a sudden there's something that they have to take care of. So I think it'll be fun for
Take your
the
shoes
whole
and socks
family.
off and rub your feet on the carpet.
So and then I think Boba Fett is one that I'm looking forward to. I know that Marvel is kind of in this like weird transition period where they're trying to find their next thing. I think it was just like, it just so happened that Iron Man became like this incredible movie that was this catalyst to all of these other great movies. So I think they're trying to like replicate that, and with the next like several movies, how they are successful or not successful, I think that's going to kind of dictate the
direction they go.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with that. I think they tried to do that with Spider-Man, and then Sony came in and they were like, no, you can't have him. And then they had to completely redo what they had planned on doing after Endgame, which honestly, if you're really, I gotta say, I don't necessarily agree with Chad on the fact that I don't care about Marvel movies coming out anymore, or I'm losing interest, but it's hard to bounce back from Endgame.
Yeah.
Endgame was the perfect ending to their entire story, from Iron Man to Endgame.
So
the
like 12
character
years.
arcs. Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
perfect. And so to try to jumpstart the whole thing again is that's a serious feat. And I think they can do it, but I think you're right. I think they're kind of like, okay, we can't really make Spider-Man the new Iron Man because of the deal with Sony. So now we've got to figure out who we can do that with. And I honestly think, I mean, I hope they bring this character in sooner rather than later. But I think there are two groups, one character singular and a group of characters plural that you won't really see the excitement until they show up, and that's Blade and the X-Men. Once they show up, Marvel will be back on track, I think. Because once you have them, you have so many different stories to tell. And I think what they might be doing is this, like phase 4 is essentially acting as a bridge from Endgame to the next big thing. So you're doing kind of what they did with phase 1, where you're introducing all of these new characters, all these different subplots. You're building off of characters that are still around from Endgame.
Yeah.
You're wrapping some up. You're doing all that, and then we're entering into the next big overarching story. I think that's what they're doing. So
don't you think though? And I'm not trying to like act pessimistic. I'm just telling you, like, basically my whole feeling of it is, my interest kind of died off because, like, at some point, not that you're gonna run out of stories, but like the Eternals, for example, like I don't connect with the Eternals. Like you tell me about Avengers and Captain America; these are all recognizable characters. I feel like if you start doing kind of second level or third level tiered characters, you're gonna lose some momentum, and they've already done the X-Men. So I don't understand why you're saying if they do X-Men again, it's gonna revamp them. They've already done like a whole slew of X-Men movies. So why,
they have done X-Men.
I think Disney Marvel X-Men.
Yeah.
I think Disney Marvel X-Men would be way better than Fox X-Men.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
there was kind of an identity crisis with the Fox ones. I think they didn't really have a thread that they were following. They were just these like, these couple of movies, and then on a separate but equal timeline, you have a couple other ones. And so I think the way that Marvel like organizes and tells very methodical stories, I think X-Men will benefit from that. They just have to find the next Wolverine because
he's no matter what your opinion of the X-Men is and what Wolverine is, your opinion of Wolverine as a character, he has to be the
thread.
He's the main focus of the X-Men. I mean, if you have X-Men and you don't focus on Wolverine, everyone's going to be mad. So, I mean, but you can not just focus on Wolverine. That's the bad thing. That's what Fox did. They just took Wolverine and they made all the other amazing characters in the X-Men be essentially side characters that really just told his story. And they
just like developed this button and they were just like, boom.
Yeah.
How many times can we press this one button and make $1 million?
And it didn't matter it didn't matter about timeline, if it matched the timeline or not. It was just, whatever. This is a story with Wolverine in it. Everyone's gonna go see it, even if it's garbage. And yeah, I mean, and so that's why, like, if you try to watch the X-Men movies from what probably should be beginning to end, which is X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then the 3 X-Men movies and on, and then throw First Class in there and all that, it doesn't make any sense at all. There are characters that show up here that aren't here, and then they're here again, but they're like older, and it doesn't match. So no, I think Disney Marvel will do a really good job with the characters. And I think what they do with Blade being in the universe is going to be really, really cool. Because, especially now, if Sony and Marvel, we know that they are going to crossover. Spoiler alert, with Venom 2. That was the end credit scene as he ends up in Spider-Man's world. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. My thing that I'm looking forward to, other than Ghostbusters, is Spider-Man: No Way Home, which comes out in December, like December 17th, I think. So, and I'm fairly positive it's going to have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Like, I think they're trying to keep that a secret, and it's just not working.
Right.
So, but anyway.
So, actually, explain while we're on the topic. Explain to me the Sony Marvel deal again, because I thought everything was worked out and Marvel has Spider-Man.
So right. So what happened was
And
Sony.
maybe I didn't read enough into it.
Yeah, Sony and Marvel. When Marvel essentially borrowed Spider-Man from Sony, and they had so many movies they could use Spider-Man with because Sony still kept the rights to Spider-Man. And there were certain things that Marvel couldn't use in their movies, like Uncle Ben, which is why you never hear anything about Uncle Ben in the MCU.
That's so silly.
He couldn't use Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, which is why you have MJ, but it's not actually Mary Jane. And so stuff like that, and you have some of the same characters that cross over, but it's all stupid money making crap that prevents stories from being good. And Kevin Feige,
yeah, it's like Sony. Look, you guys had like 5 chances,
and you blew them. Well, actually, no. The first trilogy I really enjoyed. I like the Sam Raimi movies, but I don't know.
I think the Black Spider-Man killed the entire thing.
Oh, you mean you don't like it when his sweet dance moves? That was my favorite part of the whole movie.
No. No.
I actually really like the third one. The only bad part about the third one is Topher Grace. He is absolutely atrocious as Venom.
Yeah.
He's so bad.
Nobody believes that he would be like some jock.
No, that's the thing.
No
like when you think of Venom, you think of Tom Hardy. Yeah. You don't think of, skinny guy from that 70s show.
Right.
Like he could be Spider-Man. Topher Grace would have made an okay Spider-Man and Peter Parker.
I wonder if that's why they did it, was to be like this like carbon copy of this character, because they are
for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe so. Maybe that was what Sam Raimi was going for, but it just didn't work. So anyway, let's jump into the comments section really quick before we jump into Dune. Sarah is here. She says, "Good evening. With the topic of the show, my boyfriend loves the movies and said that the books are a dry read. Is that so, Chad? You're probably going to love them. Is that something anyone else has experienced with the books versus the movies? I haven't read the books, but that is the biggest complaint I've heard, is that they're like history books with a little bit of story sprinkled in. That's what I've heard. I don't know.
I am reading the book right now. I'm at the part. I'm pretty much at the part where the new Dune ends, which is about halfway through. So I'm in like almost to page 400. And
you're really reading it then.
Yeah, for real. I got it right here.
Okay. I didn't know if you just started or what.
No, my plan was to read it before the movie came out. I just got busy and couldn't get to it. But once I saw the movie, I really wanted to compare it with the book. And I feel like I like the book. I mean, I've heard that before. I've heard that complaint. I've heard that the other books, like this one and the ones that Frank Herbert wrote himself, are good, and the other ones are miss, and like only like true fans love them. But so far, what I've read, I've loved. But that could just be me, because I can be kind of dry and boring. So I don't know, but and I like this like Dune for me is like completely different than anything else I've ever read, in the sense that like it's so complex, and I think that's what throws a lot of people off. Like, I've heard when you read it, you should read the appendix first because it goes into more of the world building, that kind of thing. But
Right. Yeah.
Either way, I mean, I've really enjoyed the book. Like, there's not been a part where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got to make it through this, or there's not like a long list of history or anything like that. So I'm not really, I don't really understand a lot of people's complaint about the books. I've liked it so far. So
I think because I've not read the books yet. I plan to, but because my buddy Brent, it is his favorite book, and he will like listen to it on Audible all the time. And he's been after me to read it or listen to it for years. But like I enjoy all the Middle Earth books, right? So like I love the Silmarillion. Yeah. I like the Silmarillion made me cry.
Silver a million.
Yes, that's right. The silver chameleon. And and like it made me cry. And that's the book that everyone's like, it's so boring. So I feel like I would like Dune.
I think you would like it a lot.
I think I would. I think I'd like it.
Like it starts as a narrative. Like it starts with and we'll get into this when we get to the review, but the John Gabar scene is the very first chapter. So like it starts in the middle of like a really exciting narrative. So that's why I don't understand people getting hung up. Like they talk about this history. I'm like, where are you getting this from? Because everything I've read so far has been not action, but it's been a lot of like interaction between the characters that's interesting. Like you're paying it, and I've also heard the complaint that it's like really political. Well, yeah, it's really political, but that just adds,
a political drama.
Yeah, it just adds to the depth of the story. Like for me, honestly, like reading this book has really affected me as far as a creator in ways that no other book has. I mean, it's really an astounding book. I can't speak highly enough about it. So I don't fully, maybe when I get into the other books, then I'll come back and be like, yeah, okay, I see what people are saying.
Yeah. The others are so much more action packed, maybe.
Anytime I hear somebody talk about needing to read the appendices before reading the book, I'm just done.
I will say
this. To me, that's like saying you need to go to IMDb and read the entire trivia section about a movie while you're watching the movie. That never works out. You always end up missing something.
I can understand what you're saying about that, but I think I've read part of the appendix. I didn't do that. I didn't read the appendix first. I read through part of it, and it's one of those things. I think you should just read through the book first, then the appendix, then go back and read it again, because you'll just start catching more and more every time. Like it's that kind of book where every time you read it, not that this is the first time I read it, but I've gone back and read chapters after seeing the movie, and I was like, oh, okay. Like it opens up every more. And that's what every good book is like. You know, you read it again and again, you catch more and more. And that's kind of how this book is too. Cool. But as far as like, I don't want to say more because I want to get into
I was going to say, we'll get more into it once we start reviewing. But Sarah has a very serious comment about Jeremy and his background. So there's some serious purple behind you, Jeremy.
It is.
I feel like you should be playing Prince at some point throughout this video, but don't do it because then we won't be able to play it on YouTube. Fine. Yeah. And there he is. Hello, Ted Davies.
Hello, Ted.
Sir. How are you? And he says, thanks for all the support on Grim 101 Book 2 campaign. You all rock. Almost funded. We're going to get you there, dude. It's going to happen. If you're watching this and you're not Ted Davies and you haven't backed Grim 101,
what are you doing?
Go do it. What are you doing with your life? You have to go do it now. It's fantastic. I have book 1 right here on the top of my stack. I'm about to read it next. I've read part of it already. I want to read the whole thing from cover to cover. I'm probably gonna do it this weekend. Look at this nice hardback.
Shiny.
Really nice. He even signed it for me and said nicer things than he said to Chad, and that's all I care about. And my goodness, no, it's a great story. It's about it really brings a lot of imagination to death and just community and love. It's just a really cool take on a fun idea. So good job, Ted.
I think it's one of the most interesting stories or ways of explaining like something that's so real, the idea of death and sadness and things like that, and where that comes from. And you just kind of
Yeah.
created this entire world
Yeah,
to explain this one feeling. So I think it's great.
very much so. And you're very welcome, Ted. He says, thank you, guys. Actually, he says, thank you, guys. There we go.
That was appropriate.
Yes, I liked it. But so jumping into the review, Jeremy, I would like to hear from you first. What were your initial thoughts when you first when the movie was over? Did you see it in theaters?
No.
Okay, I didn't either.
I haven't seen a movie in theaters since they started streaming them. You know what I mean?
You. Yeah.
And maybe
but
that's bad.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't either. I would like to. I know that I wish I would have watched this in the theaters, but I can't right now. So if I had the choice, I would have. Because watching it on my, semi-large television was nice. I enjoyed it. It was really cool. But as visually beautiful as this movie is, I can't imagine just sitting there watching it on IMAX screen, just melting my face off.
Next time you want to watch a movie, you can just come over to my basement and we can turn all the lights off and just stand very close to the screen. Then it's very big.
That's great. There we go.
Yeah.
I can't do that at home at all. No, actually, I have one of those big, huge outdoor screens, but it was raining when I wanted to watch it, so I didn't. But anyway, Jeremy, what were your initial thoughts of the movie after you viewed it?
I mean, I thought it was good. Like we talked about before, I went into it with absolutely zero knowledge of the story before, or like no expectations whatsoever, and it sounded good, it looked good, there were people who fought and things that moved around, so like what else do you want from a movie? You know what I mean? Like
people who fought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I didn't spoiler alert,
right,
in case you didn't know that people fought.
Chad, what were your initial thoughts?
It's like
I'm sorry, Jeremy. I thought you were done.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like I sounded like a
metaphor.
Mom.
Yeah,
there's fighting. Like a homeschool mom. Like,
right.
I don't know about this movie.
I don't know. It might be of the devil. There's fighting in it.
So I feel like, and I shared this with you privately, but I feel like Dune, this movie coming out, is like when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series a few years back. And when they won the World Series, I had so many people I saw on social media or acquaintances or friends that would start saying that they were the biggest Chicago Cubs fans. They had always been Cubs fans since they were kids. And I'm looking at them like, not only did I not know that you were Cubs fans, I didn't even know that you were sports fans. But they would be coming out like, oh, I've followed the Cubs since I was younger, and I just couldn't wait for them to win, blah, blah, blah. And they finally won and everything. I'm like, who are you people? I've never heard you talk about baseball. So when Dune came out, I just felt like I just saw person after person just talk about how big of a Dune fan they were and how they read the books multiple times, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like, okay, I've never heard you talk about Dune before.
Yeah.
And second of all, when Star Wars came out and everyone's complaining how horrible the newest ones were, I didn't hear a single person say, hey, you want real sci-fi, go read Dune. I've not heard anyone talk about Dune. And so when this movie come out, and like I went to the theater and there was a guy there, I overheard, I've read this book like 5 times and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, did you really though? Or is this like the cool thing? It came out and you want to be the nerdy cool kid. Like, it's like when a teenager has a T-shirt that says like a Pink Floyd T-shirt, right? Yeah. You're like, name 3 songs, please. Yeah, I'll wait. Yes.
Without looking on your phone, or like a Nirvana T-shirt or something.
Yeah.
Okay, boomer.
What? Stop it. That's true. It's annoying.
So exactly to your point. So I felt like I saw a lot of that. So when I went into the movie, I had not read the books. I didn't know much about it. I had not seen the David Lynch version. There's not much I knew. The only thing I'd seen was the documentary by I can't say his name, Jodorowsky or whatever. Jorodowski. I can't think of his name, but Dune fans are gonna like flip their lids that I can't think of his name right now. But Jodorowsky, I think his name is. But anyways, he was gonna do like a 15-hour version of Dune with like Salvador Dali was gonna be in it.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's on. You can get it on Amazon, and like I bought it because the reason why I bought it is because I was like really identified with him because he had really like it was interesting to hear the story of how he wanted to make this movie and all that he put into it only for it to fail. Like it was just an interesting, very compelling story. But anyways, that's my only exposure to Dune before seeing the movie. So when I saw the trailer, I was by it because like you guys said, I thought it was gorgeous. Like just I'd never seen anything on that level before. So going into it, I was basically a Dune virgin, didn't know much about it. And when I saw it, my first impression was I was just blown away because of how gorgeous of a movie it was visually. And so since then, I've probably seen it about 8 or 9 more times because I watched it on HBO Max. And I'm reading I'm reading the book, and I've been watching a lot of like reviews about it and reading a lot of information like about the Dune universe and things like that. So my opinion has slightly changed a bit. I still love the movie. I still, it's a gorgeous movie to watch, but I'm a bit more critical about it now, having thought about it and having read the book. I've seen the Lynch movie now, and
once somebody else told you like what opinion you should have, now it's changed.
Well, no, I'm just
messing with you.
Okay, I was gonna say no. When I heard some critiques about it, at first I was like, "Why could you critique this movie?" But then I started like listening to them, and then like reading the book, I could see now. Okay, because my fear was going into this, you were gonna have people who it didn't matter what Dune movie was out there, they were gonna tear it apart. I mean, you have that even on the Star Wars side of things. It wouldn't matter what kind of Star Wars movie they put out there. Someone just to be different than everyone else is gonna tear it apart. And my fear was that was going to be the same thing with Dune, that you're going to have people that would come out and just pick it apart. And so there are some critiques about it, I disagree, but there are a few that, the more I thought about it, like, yeah, that's a really good point. So what I would say, I know I'm talking a lot, but my total thing about it is you really have to see it on 2 levels. Like on one level, there's I've never read Dune. I don't know anything about Dune, watching it as a sci-fi movie. On that level, like, it's pretty amazing to watch. Like it's like spectacular. Like the cinematography, the design, everything about it is really, really amazing. It might get a little bit confusing because you don't maybe know some of the details about the story that you would have gotten if you had read the book. But then on the second level, as a fan of Dune or someone that's read the book, you probably be a bit disappointed because of what they did with the movie. Like they missed so many opportunities with this movie that I don't think being overly critical is definitely necessary. I mean, every critique I've ever read or saw on YouTube or anything like that, none of these people have made a movie. So it's easy to just sit here and say, oh, this was horrible, and I can't believe they did this, and I can't believe they did that. And I'm thinking every decision they've made involves a team of people. It's not just one person. Like everyone wants to put it on Denis Villeneuve, or however you say his name, as the director. Everything's on him. And I guess in a sense it is in some sense, but like there's a team of people that make these decisions when they're writing the movie and filming it and editing it. And I certainly don't think they're in a situation where they would get fired for saying something like, we shouldn't do it this way. So like a team of people have made this movie. But it is interesting, and I'll get into the critiques maybe here in a minute. It is interesting to see what they put in there versus what they didn't put in there, and the decisions they did make versus what they decided not to do. So so that's a long answer to say that my first impression, I was blown away by it. My second impression, as I've read the book, I'm more reserved in what I would say about it. It's still a beautiful movie and I still love it, but it does have some faults. I would say that.
All right. That's fair. Brian K. Morris is jumping in saying, Dune, huh? All I know, he says he knows all about it. Which, if you watch Nevermind the Furthermore this week, you'd know that was a lie. Yeah, Brian said that he'd been people have been after him for years to read it, and he has tried, and he just couldn't really get into it. So he said now that he's older now, his tastes have changed a little bit. His patience with books,
he may like
broadened.
terrible things now.
He might. Oh man. He says, but so what did you guys think of the novelization by Frank Herbert?
I don't know.
I don't understand the question.
Well, Jeremy
he's acting like Frank Herbert wrote the novel based
on the movie. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just joking because I don't know how to read. So I know nothing of this novelization.
I'm over here just being slow. So I apologize.
Right. Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. We're used to it. No, I gotta say that the my initial thoughts of the movie were negative at first, and then I had to kind of Brian said, "You'll get it one day, Chad, and you'll laugh."
Yep, that's true. Just give me time. I'll figure it out.
Oh boy, but no, my and once we get into the critiques, I'll explain what I meant by that. But my initial take was kind of just confusion, and but at the same time, in a positive awe of what I just watched. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like overtly negative. There was just like story stuff for me. It just didn't really click. Mm-hmm. But what I had just experienced was definitely not something that I wish I wouldn't have. I thought it was, So
I got it. I'm with you, Brian.
Yeah, Chad's on the same page.
Sounded like Bilbo.
Yeah, thank you. But and I guess like I've heard people say like, or I think that they've said this in optimism. I haven't heard a whole lot of people say it since the movie came out, but a lot of people like this is going to be this generation's Lord of the Rings movies, which is very difficult to say because the Lord of the Rings came out of nowhere and was this huge, blockbuster hit. The Return of the King won 11 Oscars, and like that's insane for a fantasy movie. Yeah, for any movie really, but especially a fantasy movie. And so I feel like a lot of people maybe heard that and went to the theaters, and that's not what this is. No, Dune is not Lord of the Rings. Yeah, like Lord of the Rings is a fairy tale that is told through some serious world building by a linguist. Dune is a political science fiction drama. And those are not the same. You can't compare those two stories. And I think
most science fiction has like roots in politics. Like they're always always trying to say something.
Yeah. And I think Star Trek is probably the biggest example of that.
Right. I think people that try to read or try to like say, I wish they would stop with all the like it's science fiction. Blade Runner, politics. Like every science fiction movie is trying to say something. So yeah.
I saw somebody posted. I can't remember who it is. Somebody posted on social media that they watched Dune, and it was Star Wars but boring. And which initially I laughed because it sounded funny, but I gotta say I was confused through most of the movie. What I was not was bored. I was not bored. I found it to be extremely interesting. And like I said, we'll get more into it in the critiques, but yeah, my initial thoughts were I really enjoyed what I saw, but I wish there was more story to it than I feel like we got out of this one.
Do you think it's because they turned it into a part 1, part 2? Like, see, if you would have waited until part 2 came out and watched both of them at the same time, do you think it would have been a more
Yes.
cohesive
Well,
thing.
I
Yeah.
can't say that because
Sure.
I haven't
Yeah.
read the book and I don't know what's coming in part 2.
Yeah.
So maybe,
Yeah.
you know, once I see part 2, I'll let you know. Actually, that was it's funny you say that. I said those exact words to Robin. I said, you know, because I thought originally this was a trilogy. I didn't realize it was a two-parter, and you know we looked it up afterwards, and Rob was like, oh no, it's just one more, it's coming out. I was like, okay, great. It's like so like because if there were 3, I was actually told her, I was like, I may wait until the third one to watch you know the second one, and then just
Yeah.
watch the third and then go back and watch the other 2 to try and piece together everything, because like I understood what was happening in the movie, like
Yeah.
as it happened I was like, okay, I get it, you know, they're
There
trying
is
to
a
kill.
man.
Right, yeah,
There
like
are other people.
right, like there's this emperor who does this
Yeah.
thing. I don't want to do spoilers, you know, and you know all this stuff. Like I could tell what was happening, but they didn't really do a good job of explaining why things were
Yeah.
happening.
You
That
can.
was my
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that was my biggest complaint with the movie. Really, my only complaint was as I'm watching it, I'm waiting for the punchline. And I think because it
Yeah.
was part 1, there was no punchline to this movie. Because like Lord of the Rings, and I can compare it with structure at least with Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings, there are many punchlines in that movie, and it does kind of have a bookend that leads into the next movie, right? So like there is kind of this climax, you know, that you know the Fellowship then breaks apart, and then the movie's over. Which when I first saw the movie, I didn't know it was a 3-part movie. So when it ended, I was
Seriously?
like, yeah, well, I had never heard of Lord of the Rings when I was a kid, when this
Really?
first
That's
movie
funny.
came out. Yeah, I just
All right.
never heard of it. And so that was the first experience I had with Fellowship of the Ring. And of course I fell in love after that.
Yeah.
But I had no clue that was part 1 of 3.
Like,
So
what?
I'm sitting there and the hobbits are running. And first of all, I'm like, this movie's really long and it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it's really going to wrap up anytime soon. They got a long way
We're
to
not-
go to get to
Bye.
that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like walking off into the distance and the music starts and it fades. And I'm like, what was that? You know, so
That's
I
funny.
didn't have that feeling with Dune Part 1 because I knew it was coming. But I gotta say, like, there are still so many, like, I'm okay with unanswered questions. Right. Like I totally am because it's a part 1. Totally cool with me to leave things, you know, open. But I still don't really know why things happened
Have
in
you
that movie.
have you seen the Lynch version?
No, I've
The David
never
Lynch
watched
version?
or read anything Dune. So I
Okay.
was not familiar with anything.
So what I would suggest, and like I said before,
Read the
I'm not-
appendices.
shut up. No, what I would suggest, I'm not a Dune expert, so don't hear it this way. But what I would suggest,
Well, I mean, my friend Brent is, but
is to watch the Lynch version because I didn't watch it because every scene I had seen, it looked so corny and campy.
yeah.
But when I saw it, I was actually really surprised how good it is. Like everyone talked about how bad it is, but except for the Baron's kind of dumb. Like the Baron in this new movie is amazing. The Baron
I
in the
loved
Lynch,
him. Yeah.
yeah, the Baron in the Lynch movie is kind of a caricature of an evil warlord. Although in the Lynch movie, I will say he's much more perverted and the book describes him as much more perverted than he is in this movie, like sexually perverted. Like
Okay. Yeah.
and so anyways, if you in the Lynch movie, the advantage of that is it gives a lot more of the backstory, like explanation. Because when you read the book, there's a narration at the very beginning of every chapter. It's only like a paragraph or a few sentences told from Princess Erlon or Erla. I'm butchering her name. So, but either way, and she is the one that opens the movie.
Princess
Erlon,
Buttercup.
Erlon is what her name is.
Yeah.
And she opens the David Lynch movie and gives an explanation of like the planets and the spice and the political scene that's going on. Like, it really sets it up so you understand. Oh, I understand what's going on, and it's helpful because when you're in the book, it starts, like I said, the Jom Gabar scene, and then it goes into them moving to the planet. Like there's no like in the Dune and Denis Villeneuve Dune, there's that whole scene with the the ambassador coming and announcing, you guys are going down the planet. That's not even in the book. So like,
That's weird.
I don't like, yeah. And so that's the thing, like if you read the book and you're like a real true Dune fan, you are going to be a little bit frustrated with this movie because there are scenes in the movie that they added that you're like, why would you add that when there was these other scenes that you didn't put in that would have served as a better explanation? Or there's lines in the book that are like profound that they didn't put in there, but then they would put other lines in there that are like, oh, it's good, but it's not as important to the movie.
That's
like,
frustrating.
Why did you choose that? And then there's other little things like certain lines are said by different characters sometimes in different scenes. I wish I had written them down because I kept running into them. I was like, wait a minute, that person said it in the movie. But I understand why they would do it for editorial, like storytelling, because you've got to compact it down to an hour and a half or 2 hours.
You can only fit so many people into one room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're going to make those decisions, but it is interesting the editorial decisions they did make, because some of them you're just like, why would you do that? Like, what? I don't understand. That didn't help the movie. So like that whole opening scene of them and being announced to that you're taking over, you're going down to the planet. They could have used that to give more of a backstory or a structure to what was going on.
Yeah, because that scene lasted like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was a pretty long scene. And like other stuff they didn't include. Like, for example, I didn't know until I read the book that Lady Jessica is the daughter to the Baron. Like, you don't catch that in the movie.
Nope.
You have no
didn't
idea
know
that they're related.
That's the first time I've heard that piece of information, actually.
Yeah,
I had no clue that was his daughter.
And it's super important because that line and then the Atreides line, they're trying to cross to get this Messiah figure, which you get in the movie,
right?
But you don't get all the depth of it that you do in the book, why that's so important. And then there's a character that's not in the movie that's in the book. His name's Fade. I can't say the whole name, but Fade, he's the he's the nephew of the Baron. He's the brother to Dave Bautista's character. And he's like a huge character, and they didn't put him in the movie. Like his whole point, what they're supposed to do is Dave Bautista's character is supposed to go down, take control of the planet, terrorize them, and then he's sending down the other nephew to be the savior figure.
Like a good cop, bad cop kind of thing.
And he's supposed to be the I wish they didn't have those crazy words because I can't say them, like Kisak Hadarik or whatever, the Messiah.
Oh, this is fun for me. Try
again.
Again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You can tell I'm not like a Dune expert on this. All these I can't keep straight the names and everything, but the basic plot I'm gathering here, it's like you missed the whole point of that. So I don't know if like in the second movie they're going to introduce him, because he's also there's a fight scene between Paul Atreides and Fade towards the end of the book, so he has to show up at some point because he's like the other Messiah character that's integral to the story. So it's like
well, they did mention the old witch lady with the box.
Yes,
she did mention when she was talking to the Baron.
Yes,
she mentioned that Paul isn't the only candidate.
Yes, there are other options.
So I think that might be what they're alluding to. And the Baron did look at Paul's dad. I don't remember his name. And Oscar Isaacs when he was dying.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And said,
you can spoil it because it's been out for.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you don't, whatever. He said he called him cousin.
Yeah, but that
was the only thing. That was the only time where you realized that they were somehow connected.
Yes, and that's like watching Justice League, and the whole focus is on Superman, and them saying, "We think there might be another superhero," and then you find in the second one it's Batman. And you're like, seriously, you didn't put Batman in the first part of the movie? Like, why would you not do that? So like,
directed by Joss Whedon.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. Like, if you've not read the book, you don't really miss, you don't really care, but then you read the book and you're like, wait a minute, like that's a huge chunk that of information that you've missed out on. And there's a lot of other little things like the scene with the Baron and the Duke when he's caught and he's drugged, and then they bring in Dr. Yue.
Yeah.
And they're all in there. Well, first of all, the Baron doesn't kill Dr. Yue. It's actually Piter, the Mentat, the guy with the little lip tattoo. Mm-hmm. He's the one that kills Dr. Yue in the book. and the Baron is actually on the other side of the room when the poison goes off, and he doesn't really get
So
affected
it doesn't
by it.
affect him. Yeah.
Yeah, so that whole scene of him being dipped in that liquid and them like trying to bring him back to life, that's not in the book. So it's like a weird like
Maybe they just really wanted his fat suit to be all gooey and gross.
it might be,
I
and
think that's what it was.
that's the other thing. They may have made editorial decisions for visual to really sell the movie instead of.
I actually enjoyed that scene. Like I
Oh,
thought it
yeah, I
was
did
super
too.
creepy.
Yeah.
So
Where he was like on the ceiling.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, that doesn't happen in the book. In the book, he just comes away with like he says, "I'm glad I had my shield up," and then he talks to the doctor. He's like, "I'm okay, right?" You know, basically, and he's like, "Yeah, you're fine." There wasn't like they didn't come in and find him, you know, hovering, crawling up in the corner or curled up in the corner. It's so weird, like things
Yeah.
like that, like the that spider creature. That's not in the book. Like that's just a weird.
Oh yeah,
addition.
the pet.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's
that
not in
was
the book.
weird.
So like.
Yeah.
There's some theories on that could either be like Dr. Yue's wife or in one of the other of the 6 books there's a reference to spider-like creatures. I've heard that theory. But you know, that's one of those things that I'm talking about. Like you would make a decision to put that in the movie, but you wouldn't put Fade in the movie. Like that,
Yeah.
why would you do that? You know
You
what
know
I
what's
mean?
funny?
So-
You sound like Lord of the Rings fans who are still angry that Tom Bombadil is not in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, it's probably true. And here's the thing, and it's so funny because I've kind of flipped a little bit because like when like I said, I was blown away by it, but then as you read the book, you're just like, oh, well,
There's so much more you
why?
could have
Yeah,
done.
why would?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have made it like, I feel like they could have done with Dune what they do with Disney movies, and I know that sounds weird to say, but what I mean by that is like an adult and a child can watch the same movie and get so much out of it and come away with loving it. They could have made Dune in a way that the hardcore Dune fan is catching things that no one else is catching and is enjoying it, but the person that's never read Dune before could see it and be like, man, that was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
But
You know,
instead,
I've heard from so many people, including my friend Brent, who does listen to Dune at least twice a year. He is one of those people. He can't tell you how many times he's listened to it. He knows more about Dune than he does the history of our world, and
Nice.
which is very impressive. And but you know, he's even said that it is almost impossible to make a film adaptation of Dune and be true to the book.
Yeah.
Because it is so complex and it is so. Now, I'm surprised actually that they chose to make it into a movie. Again,
Yeah, I've heard that
I
before.
thought
Not a
they
TV
would
show.
go back to the miniseries, you know, route like they tried to do in the 90s.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen that either. But you know, I've heard that as far as it's that version is truer to the story
Yeah,
than the David Lynch
yeah.
version. Because it allows them to take the time to tell the story. And see, I figured in the age of streaming shows that have big budgets,
Yeah.
this would have been an HBO, you know, original series. To do, you know, season 1 would have just been the first book. And
Yeah,
then,
I think
yeah,
I think it's
like,
so difficult to make. So you think about what we've talked about already on this show, comics being turned into movies and books being turned into movies. And I think you could never say in a movie as many things as you would say in a book or that are said in a book. Like it would be 50 hours long. You know what I mean? Like if you tried to do that faithful adaptation. And on the flip side of that, when you're trying to take a comic book and turn it into a movie, there's been thousands of comics about, you know, we'll say Wolverine or the X-Men or, you know, whatever, Captain America. But in reality, most comics have, you know, what, 1,000 words at most. So that they're having to like bring things out that aren't necessarily there, and those creative choices are what usually get, you know, them in trouble with fans, because, you know, the fans are like, they're going on where the ways that they've filled it in, right? The story that they've added in between the panels, and it's not jiving with what they're seeing on the screen, and they're so mad, and like you just got to pretend that they're not the same things, and then you go in with that,
Yeah,
that mindset,
it's
and you end up enjoying it. I think more
it's
often
very
than not.
much the movies are an Elseworlds kind of take, which is
Yeah.
what I've always thought of with the superhero movies and everything. And I don't mind, like Lord of the Rings, right? Like they didn't really change Aragorn's character, but he isn't like a recluse who doesn't in the book he isn't like this guy who doesn't want to be king or anything. Like in the book, like he's the king, he just hasn't taken the throne. Like it's like that's and he knows it, and he's proud of it on many levels. So it's not something he's necessarily like shunning like he is in the movie. And I didn't mind that. I mean, obviously, when I saw it, I hadn't read the book, but when I read the book and found out the differences in all these different characters and the different things, The Hobbit, right? The biggest reason why I still love the Hobbit movies is because I'm glad they did their own thing. I thought it was fun. I loved the additions in the movies that we didn't get in the book. I loved seeing Legolas. I love that whole, the whole love triangle that happened in the Hobbit that wasn't in the book at all. I thought it was a neat addition. So I'm not opposed to those things at all. But for me, we've kind of already gotten into the critiques. So like with me, when I said I was so confused, I just like as a storyteller, I found it frustrating because there were many, many times where I felt like if you had just spent maybe a minute or two more in this scene and added a couple lines, I would have understood everything that was happening. And instead, like it wasn't even like clever storytelling where it's a puzzle, right? It wasn't even that. It was just like, we're going to do this scene, and if you're with us, you're with us, and if not, sorry. And then we're moving on. And I was just like, and then by the time the movie was over, like I said, like I knew what was happening on a very basic level, but I had no idea why I needed to care about any of this.
Yeah.
That was my biggest complaint, was I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care, when certain characters died. I didn't care, like you barely see some other characters that I was, Duncan is my favorite character in the whole movie, and he's kind of in it, and it's just like, I don't know. There were just really choices that I would not have made had I been in charge of making the movie. But
which one was Duncan?
He's Jason Momoa.
Oh, Idaho. That's his last name. His name is literally Duncan Idaho.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
For some reason, Idaho stuck out in my head
like,
more than
right,
Duncan.
Cool. But still, that wasn't enough to make me not like the movie. I really enjoyed it, and it honestly, this movie had the same effect that the last Harry Potter movie had on me, where I enjoyed the movie, but I was frustrated with it because I felt like it didn't give me all the answers that I needed to tell the complete story. So when I left the theater, when I watched the last Harry Potter movie, I left the theater, I went and bought all the Harry Potter books, and I sat down and read all of them over the course of like 2 or 3 months, because I was like, there's more to this story and I need to have it. Because it gave me a taste, but it didn't give me a full story. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie. Was I now want to read the book because I'm very interested in what this story is, what I know it is, but I'm just not getting it from the movie. And so I need to go get it from the book, because I can take as much time as I want there. And, I can really dwell, I can read appendices, I can do all those things with the book to really understand and care about what's happening, where the movie just didn't do it for me.
Yeah. One of the critiques I heard is from a guy named Miles Greb, who I'm friends with on Facebook. I never met him personally, but I really appreciate what he had to say, because he was more critical of the movie when it first came out than I was. And I was interested why someone would be that way. But then when I listened to his critiques, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things he said was, it it's like when you sit down to listen to your favorite album, like let's say you sit down to listen to OK Computer from Radiohead or Nirvana or
Yeah.
something like that, and you love this album so much, and someone gets up to play it, but they miss some notes or take out some lyrics, and you're just like, what happened? This was not the Nirvana that I know. And
Right.
when he said that, I was like, oh, that is interesting. So as I've read the book, it's like, okay, I understand what he's saying there, because it's true. If you're a true Dune fan, you love the books, you see how like in depth they are, and then you see this movie, they have the experience that you're having, Brian, where you're just like, this is it? Like what's going on? There's so much more that more information I need. And the other thing he said, and I'm going to butcher this because it was a great quote, but basically he said, this movie was visually dependent. This was a visually dependent movie for a story that was prose dependent, is basically how he said it.
That is a perfect explanation.
That is a perfect explanation, because it's exactly true. Like the thing that draws you in with this movie is the visual element of it, but it's missing the prose aspect of it. It's missing all the information that you need when you're watching this to give it some depth. So having said that, let me ask you two questions. Number one, Brian, you were talking about, you enjoy seeing people doing adaptations of movies and things like that, or of stories. So if someone took Memoirs of an Angel and they did their take on it, but it was different and left out information from what you read, would you not be upset the way they treated your story?
Depends on what they decided to. Well, first of all, I would be a part of that process, legally speaking, so they wouldn't be able to do that. But
let's say, hold on. Let's say you're dead, because Brian,
well, then I don't care.
Well,
no, I know what you're saying. I'm just being difficult. I know what you're saying. So, say someone offered me $7 billion, which I would totally
billion.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, $7 billion. I would give them Memoirs of an Angel.
You are a whore.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't. I can be bought.
Give your story
no
away
one
for
would
$7 billion.
ever give me $7 billion for that movie.
I still call you a whore. Go ahead.
Actually, I don't know that I would. I'm just saying that. But if somehow someone made a movie and it did not fully represent what Memoirs of an Angel was, on one level I would be upset, but on another level I wouldn't be, because then it would give people, more people, it would point them into the direction of the true source of the story. So it's very much what Mike Mignola said about Hellboy, is when he talks about Hellboy the movies, that's not his Hellboy. That's Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. And he said, especially the second movie, that is not his Hellboy. He likes the movies. He was a part of making them, but that's not Hellboy from the comics. And if you've read the comics, that's not Hellboy from the comics. And, but he said that what the movies did for him was, first of all, they gave him lots of money to be able to produce more Hellboy comics. And secondly, people like myself, who had never heard of Hellboy when the first movie came out, was introduced to the character, and then found out it was a comic, and then wanted to go read the comic after watching the movie, which is what Dune has done for me already.
It's done for me too. Sure.
Like I wasn't really interested. Like I've heard things about it, and I'm like, I might read it one day. But after watching the movie, I really want to know more about this story.
Yeah.
Especially because I know I would like it now.
Yeah.
Like, so in that sense, I would be totally fine with it. I'd be totally fine with someone taking Memoirs and doing a version of it that brought people back to the comics, because I would not have reached those people otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I look at that.
Yeah, I suppose I was just thinking, like, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of arrogant to take a story and add and edit it in a way in which you're adding and taking things out. And I know as a movie you have to do that because you can't put everything in it.
Yeah.
But like if someone took The Silence and decided to add a whole new planet to the 12 that I've already have in there, and said, well, we want to do part of the story on this planet. I'm like, why? Why wouldn't you just do I have all the source material. Why wouldn't you just use that? So when I think of like the scenes in Dune, when they're adjusted or changed, or a character is different or says something different, I'm like, why would you do that when you had the book? Like, the book said it so well. Why do
Yeah.
you think your version is so much better visually? Like, it doesn't make
And
sense.
I think the answer to that, which I would actually, depending on what it was, I would be okay with. Because at some point, like, there are two ways to make a movie that's based on a book or a comic.
Mhm.
There's essentially what like Zack Snyder did with 300 and Watchmen, which is essentially take it page for page, panel for panel, and remake the story into a movie.
Mhm.
There's the direct approach like that, where you do a couple things because it's a movie, but for the most part, 98% of it is the exact same thing. And then there are creators who want to essentially take this story but make it theirs as well. Like, still, and that is a way of not just making their own version of this story for other people, but also it's an homage to what they love, which inspired them to do this thing. So, like, I can understand from a creator's perspective wanting to take this thing. So, first, perfect example, right? Like, if I were ever given the opportunity to redo a character, it would be the Shadow.
Mhm.
I've always said that. And I would not do what's already been done. I would do my version of the Shadow.
Yeah.
And I would keep key things that makes the Shadow who he is, and all his agents and all that kind of stuff. What makes me love the character I would keep, but I would change him quite a bit. I already know what I would do, and it would be very different, and it would probably make a lot of people not so happy with me.
Mhm.
And I think there are creators that if you want Dune, go read Dune.
Yeah.
If you want my Dune, watch this movie. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of, and I'm okay with that. Like, when I think of Lord of the Rings, there's Tolkien and then there's Peter Jackson. And they are very similar, but they're also very different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm
I-
okay with those kind of differences.
I like when artists say that they don't like telling people the meaning behind their things. Like some musicians, like, they don't like talking about the meaning of the song because they want people to get what they need out of it. And a perfect example of that is I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan. Eddie Vedder, on their first album, it's a song called Alive. Hold on. Stop. I already turned it off once. I don't know why it's beeping. The song called Alive is a story that is true to, like, Eddie's life. Like, this actually happened to him. And basically, the guy that his dad dies. At the funeral, his mom tells him, "This wasn't your real dad. Also, your real dad, which I never told you about, he died." And the chorus of the song is, "I'm still alive." Like, he says that over and over, a lot of times. And understanding his story, and in that song, it's one of those things, like, he's still alive is him saying, like, well, everyone else is gone, but I'm here. What do I do now? And he told a story at a live taping of one of their concerts that he, as they, over the years, as they have played that song, and the crowd is responding back, and they're saying, "I'm still alive, I'm still alive." He said it kind of, like, turned into this like, survivor chant. Like, even though all of this garbage happened, I've overcome. Like, I'm still here. And he said, had I forced people into my interpretation of it, it wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah.
Which is something that everybody can think, in a positive way about something. When I wrote it, he's like, it was not positive at all. He was lost and alone, but it's turned into something else because he kind of let people infer about it. And I know songs and comics and movies are different things, but I think there's something healthy and good about, here's what I want you to get out of it, but I'm not going to nail you on every single detail, leaving people some room to add something to it and potentially make it better. It's one of those things where you like, yes, this is my story and it came out of my brain, but maybe I'm not naive to think that I'm the only person that can add to the story.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
That was
it's
just something I
interesting
was
because
thinking
like an author that did that openly was H.P. Lovecraft. He told people, please use my, expand upon the universe that he created. I mean, that's why you look at all this, it's not necessarily H.P. Lovecraft's creation. I mean, he initially created, a lot of these monsters and everything like that, but a lot of them were never fleshed out until they were written by other people. And he encouraged that. He wanted people to take his universe, things that he had created, and expand on the universe and make it their own. And he was always very much okay and open with that kind of stuff. So but I think there are a lot of stories that I mean that's up to the author or the creator. No one should really be expected to do that. But I mean I do, especially in songs, I do appreciate when that is the case, because music, I think, it has a lot more room to do that than any other medium. Because when you're telling a story, unless it's extremely metaphorical, it's very difficult to kind of come up with your own understanding of what a story is about. But with a song and poetry, because they're very much in the same family, you can definitely fill in the blanks with your own experience, with your own emotions, to varying degrees. So,
interesting.
Rad.
Well, guys, as we wrap up, let's end on a positive note. Go around the circle here and say what our favorite things about the movie was. Chad, we'll start with you.
Oh, you start with me first, huh?
No, I'm not.
Well, I mean, the most obvious thing is just the cinematography, the design of it, the sound. I would definitely recommend seeing it IMAX. That's the way I saw it first. It's incredible just to look at. So that is my favorite part of it, is the visual aspect of the movie and the fact that it got me into the books and into this universe and finding out more about what this whole thing about Dune is. Like it really is rocking my world as far as what you can do with science fiction and what it means and that kind of thing. So yeah, that would be my favorite part. And just as I scan, in my mind as I'm scanning through the movie, I mean, I love the John Gabar, or John Gabar, however you say that. I love that scene. It's just so powerful the way it's portrayed. And I heard there's a video where the director Denis talked about how they approached that scene and why they lit it this certain way, and why they had the environment around, why they chose a bookshelves behind them, and why has a veil over her face. Like everything they put into that scene was thought through, which I really appreciate. So that was probably one of my favorite scenes. And I love the Baron, just so creepy and so like evil, and the way he's portrayed is gorgeous. And some of the design of the character, I remember when the ambassador comes down and all those people are following him. Some of them are the navigators, which you don't really hear about, but apparently are huge to the story. They're the ones that look like they should be in Star Wars.
I love their look.
I did too. I was like,
so
man,
cool.
That is so amazing. I love that scene where they come to announce just everything about the lighting on it. It's so blue and cool. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but the lighting they had on it and the coloring was just phenomenal. And the worm scene, I mean, come on, that was crazy. Especially that one where the worm comes up and he's like staring up at it and it's right hovering over him. Man, that was awesome. So
yeah, it was like he was so little on this like hill, on this dune of sand, and then you know, the entire background is just this like wide open mouth of the worm. Like, cool. To make something like that is just difficult to do, you know, and make it look well. Yeah,
for sure.
So Jeremy, what was your favorite? Was that it?
Yeah, the worm.
I like the worm. It was good. It was pretty.
You know, I think what you guys are gonna say, the same thing. Like, you know, visually the sound is great. Specifically, I liked that they worked from like a limited palette. I think sometimes you can get more creative when you have some limitations, or you're forced to be more creative when you have some limitations. You know, like it was basically like it was either like a blue or an orange. You know, there was very little like green to it. And I think that kind of like helped sell that they were on this world of just like nothing but sand, essentially. I think it was funny. I think there were a couple of times that they made it almost seemed like intentional Star Wars nods, like you were talking about with the guys, the way they were dressed, or like in the middle or in the beginning, there was this like speeder that flew by, and it was almost like they took the replica from A New Hope.
What's interesting about that is, depending on if they described how it looks in the book, Star Wars stole that from Dune.
Yeah. I was going to say this earlier. Yeah. The worst thing I saw was an ad that said Dune is the next Star Wars. Like, you idiot. Dune was made before Star Wars, and it was influenced Star Wars. That's where you get the
many ways.
The voice and the Force. Like that. Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
And I mean, come on. They're pretty much just on Tatooine the entire movie.
Yeah, but it almost looked like they took the prop and we're like, we're gonna put this in our movie now.
Well, I mean, it really would be like, all right, yeah, exactly that, and just be like, oh yeah, well, this was ours to begin with. So
So those couple of things, I liked that a lot. Yeah.
The score was my favorite part. There was just one scene where I was like, why is this music so intense for like seemingly no reason? I think that was one of my confused parts, because I remember like, I was like, okay, I feel like this should be like a really big deal moment, but it's just people walking around. But the music is telling me that I should really feel like something big is about to happen, but no one's doing anything. And then it never led to anything. So I was like, okay. But other than that, the score itself is beautiful. It's intense. It really brings you into the mood. And of course, visually across the board, that 10 out of 10. This is a visual movie, for sure. More than anything else, it's visually driven. And most movies are visual, but no, I would also say this: very few movies have been able to make me go ah. Dune did that with the sandworms. The first,
you mean scene, like the suspense of it, or
it felt like Jaws.
Okay.
When the sandworms were that first scene where they introduced it, which that's my favorite scene in the movie, when the sandworm is, charging towards the whatever it was that was collecting the spice, the big machine that was gathering all the spice, and they had to get them out of there. It, like, when you see how big the sandworm's mouth is in that scene, like, my jaw dropped. I was completely immersed in the moment.
Yeah.
And I was scared
Yeah.
because I am scared of sharks. I
Mm.
just am. That's my fear, and that's why I
Mm.
never go in the ocean. But like, because we don't really know what's out there, right? Like, we've watched Jurassic World.
I mean,
That's out
biologists
there.
have been pretty sure for a while.
But
What's in the
like, that's
ocean.
out there, and I don't really want to tangle with that thing. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it kind of brought me back to that fear that I have. And they did such a good job. The scene where they're running from it at night, Paul and his mom
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
running, and then it's up, it gets like right up on him, and he's looking at it, which was an interesting scene, by the way. I don't know what's going to come of that, but I have theories. And I thought that was just super powerful,
Mhm.
just how big and terrifying this thing actually is.
Mhm.
So that was my favorite part of the entire movie, was just how they depicted it, how they introduced the sandworms with that engraving on the wall
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first time you see anything about it, and like that alone was enough to make me go, holy crap.
Yeah.
like oh no, I do not want to be messing with these guys. So yeah, that was by far my favorite part. So let's
Yeah.
jump into the comments really quick. From the desk of a small press publisher, says, evening all. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello.
And he said, read the book after you watch part 2, I guess is what he's saying.
Mm.
I think you're going to read the book now.
No, he's
'cause-
saying read the book after you split into 2.
Oh,
like-
okay. Okay. Well, I'll concentrate real
Divide
hard.
yourself into 2 pieces,
Like a worm.
and then read the
Yeah,
book. Yeah.
It says, to be honest, I didn't care for the novel. A lot of people say that, and I understand. I understand why a lot of people don't really care for Lord of the Rings either. They're my favorite books, but I understand why people don't really get into them, because they're hard reads, and
So many
I can
words.
tell
So
Dune
many
is a hard
words.
read. So we'll see how it is. And then there's Eric Hawkins. What is Dune? It's an STD. So all right, guys. Well, any closing thoughts before we end this thing? No thoughts at
No.
all?
My
None
brain
at
is
all?
empty.
All right.
It's,
Well, let's go around the room. I'll give you full screen. Jeremy, tell us where we can find you and what you can do for everyone, if I can get you. Oh. There we go. Sorry, my computer was being weird. There you go.
Well, as I told you guys last week, you can find me and all of my stuff in my basement. That's pretty much where everything is. If you have trouble getting to my house, you can go to my website, jeremywoodring.com. I'm a photographer, videographer, and I help indie comic book creators create videos and different assets for social media to kind of help them with their marketing goals. So that's what I do. And yeah, I do it in my basement with all of my stuff.
Oh my gosh. Chad, please redeem us.
Okay, I am the creator, artist, and author of the comic book sci-fi series called The Silence, which you can see
Woohoo!
here. Book 1 is out, and book 2 is at the printer right now and will be released hopefully next month. And you can find that at thesilencecomics.com or thesilencearts.com.
Ooh, fancy dancy.
Mm.
And I am Brian Rodman, the author and illustrator of the dark fantasy series Memoirs of an Angel. We just wrapped up on Kickstarter a couple weeks ago with issue 8. You can find issues 0 through 7 and also the trade paperback on brianrobin.com. Also, you can find The Nebulizer, which is a post-apocalyptic action comedy about an asthmatic and its feisty AI-controlled nebulizer suit named Albie as they fight through a post-apocalyptic world filled with allergen mutants. It's a lot of fun. It's ridiculous. Check it out. I am also 1/4 of Comic Book Spectrum, which you can find here on the Rising Tide Network every Thursday night at 7 p.m. This week, I have a fat stack of comics that I will be going through. We review comics. We talk about the comics industry and usually just giggle like middle schoolers, much like what you saw here. And when I'm not in those places, you can find me here on the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, which I'm very happy to be here. Fellas, we have a couple more comments before we end the show. Eric, it's a type of cookie. You've heard of Lorna Dunes. Oh no. Sounds like a John Carter ripoff. Oh no. Oh
That's
no.
funny.
So Eric, you're saying Dave Bautista is Deja Thoris. I don't know who that is, Brian.
Mm-mm.
Sorry, man. I'm too young for that, I guess. But anyway, I do like John Carter. That's fun. The movie was not that great, but the books are awesome. All right, guys. Well, next week, Chad, you want to talk about who will be on the show with us?
Yes, we have a fantastic guest named Philip Russert. He is multiple things, but he is running a Kickstarter for his book called Tragedy, and he's on issue number 2. He also runs comic book conventions and is a huge supporter of the indie community and has his own YouTube show and has a lot of indie creators on. Very selfless when it comes to that. So we are honored to have him as our guest next Tuesday.
Cool.
So definitely stay tuned for next week. It'll be Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Dastardly Dingles.
Dingles?
We are the Dastardly Dingles. Oh, the Dastardly Dingos Network. Thank you guys
Talk about
for
STDs.
jumping into the comment section and hanging out with us for an hour or so. We love it when you guys show up and chat with us. So as always, have fun, be safe, and don't do drugs. But if you do, call Jeremy. He might be able to assist you. Also, hit
True.
like, share, and hit that bell to be notified when another episode drops. So thank you again for hanging out with us, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.
See y'all.